Final Destination 5 from 2011 got a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. But what do I think about it? I'm trying to figure out why I look deformed in this camera. Hey, what's up, y'all? Back again with another banger. And today we're going to be doing another movie review, or a pickle review as we like to call it here, and talking about Final Destination 5 from 2011 as we continue our Final Destination franchise. If you're new here, we've been reviewing every movie in the franchise, and at the end, we'll do some rankings and a tier list. And I have the first 4 films reviewed out on my channel if you want to go look at those if you haven't already. And there will be spoilers, and this movie is 14 years old, so get on that as soon as possible. Or don't, it's up to you. Once again, we have the same premise as the rest of this franchise. Our lead, Sam, is on a trip with his co-workers for a little work getaway, and they're crossing a bridge when he gets a premonition that the bridge will fall and collapse, and everyone will die tragic deaths. But he's able to get off of the bus and save a few of his friends before they die, and then death comes back for revenge to get them one by one. This film gets back to being good after the absolute tragedy that was the Final Destination, or Final Destination 4. And this is actually, from my knowledge, one of the fan favorites, and it's seen as one of the best in the franchise, and I also see it that way. I do enjoy this movie, so this review should be a good time once again. First, I think that this is a good premonition. Bridges are a common fear. And, you know, it's up high. It's a fear of heights. You're over water. I know a lot of people who are deathly afraid of bridges, and they even go find a different route to avoid bridges if they can. So I think using a bridge here is just another great premonition to hit at some fears. And, you know, I might even be looking at bridges a little different next time I cross them. So this premonition was pretty cool. And although 3D was used and CGI was used, the premonition kills are actually some of the best of the franchise. We have that hot oil or tar that comes on, you know, Todd Packer from The Office, and, you know, his hand is just getting gripped away and his face melts and he falls off the bridge and dies. And, you know, we have the rebar coming in the dude's face and pause. But yeah, just some sick kills that absolutely work even with the CGI, because they used good CGI this time. Also, we have a pretty good cast of characters here. They have good chemistry. It feels like, you know, they're friends and they have good chemistry, and you can feel that through the movie, and it just makes us intrigued to follow their story and to see what they got going on. It also really works with the twist at the end because of the chemistry that these characters have. Even the nerdy, horny guy, he's kind of even a fun character. You know, he says some funny things and has us laughing. And it just feels like the writing was way better than the last movie. And it just feels way smoother. And the comedic tone works way better. Something that is not true for the last film. We have the comedic tone once again. Something that has been used every movie except for the first one. And I actually think this is one of the best at using that kind of comedic tone. There are some laugh out moments in this movie and some funny times. Like, I actually did laugh out loud a few times in this movie. So that's probably the, you know, few times that a movie actually does this in this franchise, which is why I'm such a big fan of the serious tone of the first film. Another major W is that Todd is back again to give us some exposition and be that creepy coroner. And it is great because we really felt that presence was missing in these last 2 films, and it was such a negative for these last 2 films, especially the last one when they didn't have any lore to make up for him being gone. But I do have to be honest, I have some questions for Mr. Bloodworth. Is he a traveling coroner, or do these movies all take place in the same spot? That is my question, but I guess we'll never know. Also, we have the FBI aspect here again, like the first film, and these are the 2 films that actually integrate that aspect, which I really like. I think it is cool to have somebody running away from death, and also the FBI, and it also makes sense that they would be investigated because they say they know a tragedy's coming, they pull themselves and their friends off, and then people die, and then people die after that for the coming weeks, and they're always in the vicinity of whoever just died and they're friends with them, and it just makes sense. Also, the kill style of the Rube Goldberg here once again. and it's used very well here, and especially when multiplied with some of what I think are the greatest kills in this franchise. We have some absolute banger kills, and paired with that Rube Goldberg, the tension is built and built until these small things add up and just finally splat. Somebody just gets annihilated, and just in a fantastic way, they are killed, in all honesty. I love the kills in this film. The obvious gymnastics kill, which I think is probably the most popular one from this film. You know, you have the nail, and then you have the chalk, and you have the fan, and then you have the balance beam, and then you also have the wet cords all coming into play until finally, you know, we know what happens with her. And then we have the horny guy when he goes to get a massage, and then he's laying down, you know, the old lady comes in. That's a funny moment. And he gets all those needles in him, and then his phone catches on fire, something catches on fire, and then he falls out of his seat, lands on the needles, gets all bloody, and then finally the Buddha just smashes him after he was just making fun of it. It's just, those two kills are probably some of my favorites from this movie, and maybe even of the whole franchise. And especially with the horny guy, he had that whole sequence is just so funny, and then he just goes splat. So that was just great. Even the eye doctor scene with the laser eye surgery, which is something that I personally am cool on. I don't think I'd ever want to do that. And I could see that being a common fear. You know, you got metal holding your eye open and a laser coming right at your eye. I mean, if that wasn't a fear, it spawned a fear for me, and I hope I never have to do that, because I'm going to be tweaking out in that chair. If they got me in there, dude, they're going to have to kick me out. I'm just going to put the contacts in all honesty. And I might be contradicting myself from the last movie, because this movie was also made for 3D. But the only difference is that when I watched this, I didn't notice it was in 3D. I didn't know until after I watched the movie, which maybe that's me not paying attention. But I feel if you make a movie for 3D, and if it's able to be watched at home where most people are going to watch it and they don't even notice, then that's not going to ruin the movie at all if it doesn't affect it. So the 3D for me, it was cool. I also really like the dynamic of the relationship between Sam and Molly. You know, Molly breaks up with him at the beginning of the movie, and then all throughout this tragedy, Sam's trying to get back with Molly, all while still trying to pursue his career as being a chef in Paris. And that dynamic is kind of like a realistic one that is still super cool to follow, and we're kind of rooting for Sam to get Molly back the whole entire movie, all while death is chasing him down. So it's pretty cool to see. And also the twist towards the end where Peter comes in and he's all frantic and he's got crazy eyes and he's just gone off the rails because he's trying to kill someone so that death can go away from him and he can take their life and live in their life and have the rest of the time that they were going to live, as long as he takes another life. And I think that's pretty cool lore that was added. And it's just a cool sequence when he comes in, he's angry, he's trying to kill Molly because Molly isn't on death's list. Well, at least not yet. And he's mad because his girl died, so he's trying to kill them. And then they got this whole fighting scene in the kitchen. And then the detective comes in and gets shot by Peter. And then we have all the different tools that Sam originally had seen when he walked in the kitchen, all the sharp knives, all the boiling water, all those different ways that he could have died. And then he was able to stick the skewer through Peter. And that scene was just so sick. Just a nice fight scene in the kitchen. And just a really cool way to twist up this movie, because this wasn't part of the formula of the first 4 films. And obviously, what this specific movie is known for, the ending. It was just so satisfying to see them get on the plane, and then they see Alex Browning arguing and all that chaos going off of Alex saying the plane's going to explode and everyone's going to die, and then him and his friends getting pulled off the plane. And then you realize this is a prequel, and they're on Flight 180. I just think that was so satisfying in a way to connect these movies, because honestly, these movies aren't even really connected other than death and Tony Todd. So by having this be a prequel, it finally connects at least 2 of the films, and it kind of sandwiches them together, and that worked really well, and it was super satisfying, honestly. Once I saw them getting on the plane, I was like, hold on, are they going to do that? Are they actually going to do that? And then when they did that, I was like, that's sick. That's so sick. I was honestly like, I was shocked. That was just a great ending. I really liked that. And I also liked how they killed the idea that killing someone else would free you from death, because that manager who had killed his other coworker, and then he's in the bar and then he has the plane debris fall on him and kill him, and just kind of lets us know, there's no escaping death, and that idea is not true, which does contradict Tony Todd's statements. So that's a question I kind of have. Was Tony Todd wrong about taking a death to save your life, or did we and the characters just misinterpret what he was saying and how to escape death? That's what I'm kind of confused about, but it's really no big. Y'all forgive it. It's Tony Todd, That's my guy.
You all just be careful now.
And why did Molly have to die on Flight 180 if she was saved from the premonitions, so she wasn't on Death's list, unless it was part of Death's design for her to die on that plane? I don't know. Kind of just being a little picky, but it was kind of confusing, and it felt kind of like a cheap way to end it by having Molly die because she was saved in the premonition. So that just kind of raises a few questions, like, did they just throw her on there just because, or was it Death's design for her to eventually die in Flight 180? So I don't know. I do think that this ending would have been a perfect way to end the franchise as a whole, as most franchises don't really have a way to connect the movies together. And this, like I said, would have been a perfect way of sandwiching the first and the last movie with having a prequel. And I think that would have been a very sick way to do it. But obviously we have another movie, so that isn't how it went. But it could have been a good opportunity. Also, like I said in the review of the original Final Destination, I'm a little afraid of planes. So having to see this plane once again blow up and having people sucked out and people getting just fire flamed in their face and their face melting off, just let's stop doing that, okay? Okay, Final Destination, let's leave the planes alone. They're scary enough. I think we've had enough fun with them. Overall, I really think this is a banger, and it's definitely a step up, or 2 steps up, or 3 or 4 or 5 steps up from Final Destination 4. So I'm very glad that they were able to revive the direction that this franchise was going. I would give it 4 out of 5 pickles, and I would most definitely stick my pickle in it for sure. You can count on that. Let me know what y'all think about this Final Destination prequel down in the comments below, and let me know what you rank it. Please drop a like and hit that subscribe button, or you will find yourself on a bridge with a premonition. Thank y'all so much for watching, and have a blessed day. Peace.